The moving truck rumbled away, leaving me standing in the driveway of my new home, a quaint two-story house nestled among the historic streets of Charleston. The sun cast a warm glow over the cobblestones, illuminating the vibrant flowers that adorned my neighbor's gardens. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of jasmine and magnolia, hoping it would ease the knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. Settling into a new place should have felt exhilarating, but instead, it deepened my sense of isolation. My husband had stayed behind in our old town for work commitments, leaving me to navigate this transition alone. The silence inside the house echoed louder than I expected. Unpacking boxes felt endless, each one revealed remnants of a life once full of laughter and warmth. Now, it was just me and the shadows that lingered in empty rooms. As I wrestled with a stubborn piece of furniture, a voice broke through my solitude. "Need a hand?" I turned to see a tall man with tousled hair standing on the other side of the fence. He wore an easy smile that somehow felt familiar, even though we had never met. Yes. That would be great," I replied, grateful for his offer. He introduced himself as Jake, my neighbor from next door. He was a few years younger than me and had an easygoing demeanor that put me at ease almost instantly. As we maneuvered the heavy dresser into place, we chatted about Charleston's charm, the festivals that brought life to the streets and the historic architecture that whispered tales of the past. "I love working in my garden," he said casually as we wiped sweat from our brows. "If you ever need help or advice with yours, just let me know." "Thanks. I might take you up on that," I replied, surprised at how natural our conversation flowed despite my initial apprehension. After we finished with the dresser, Jake leaned against the fence separating our yards. "How about dinner sometime? Just as friends?" I hesitated for a moment, guilt flickered in my mind like an unwanted candle flame. Dinner sounded harmless enough, just two neighbors getting to know each other, but it stirred something within me that had been dormant for too long. "Sure," I finally said, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach. As he walked away, I caught myself staring after him longer than necessary. There was something comforting about his presence. It was as if he understood loneliness without needing words. That evening was filled with unpacking and half-hearted attempts at organizing my new life when thoughts of Jake crept back and uninvited. The idea of dinner loomed over me like an impending storm cloud, both thrilling and terrifying. Days passed slowly as I adjusted to this new rhythm of life without my husband by my side. Each morning began with coffee on the porch where I watched neighbors pass by on their way to work or errands. The vibrant energy of Charleston pulsed around me while I remained stagnant within these walls. Jake's invitation lingered in my mind until he knocked on my door one afternoon with homemade cookies in hand, a simple gesture that sparked warmth within me. We chatted briefly before he mentioned his garden again. "Why don't you come over tomorrow? We can work on mine together," he suggested casually. The thought excited me more than it should have. Gardening seemed like an innocent way to spend time together without crossing any lines. "I'd love that," I replied before closing the door behind him. The next day unfolded pleasantly as we dug into soil and planted seeds under Jake's guidance. The sun warmed our backs as we exchanged stories about our lives, his childhood spent playing among flowers and mine filled with memories now tinged with melancholy. Our hands brushed occasionally while passing tools or reaching for plants nestled close together. Each contact sent electric jolts through me, a reminder that connection could exist even amidst loneliness. At one point during our gardening session, Jake paused and looked at me intently. "You seem different since moving here," he said softly. I swallowed hard at his observation. Part of me wanted to deny it while another part craved validation from someone who didn't know my history, a blank slate where anything could be written anew. "I guess it's just starting fresh," I managed to say while avoiding his gaze. Later that evening, after hours spent laughing amidst blooms and dirt-streaked hands, Jake invited me for dinner again, this time at his place. A sense of exhilaration surged through me as anticipation built within. Perhaps this time wouldn't feel so innocent after all. Dinner unfolded effortlessly, delicious pasta paired with laughter echoing off walls adorned with photographs showcasing Jake's travels abroad. It felt surreal being there, every bite tasted sweeter under candlelight illuminating his striking features across the table from mine. We talked easily about everything except what loomed between us, the unspoken tension thickening like fog enveloping Charleston's streets at dawn. As dessert arrived, a simple berry tart, I caught him watching me intently again. This time there was no mistaking what lay beneath those glances. Desire mingled with curiosity danced between us like fireflies flickering in twilight. Just then came an unexpected knock at Jake's door, a sound jarring enough to break our momentary trance. My heart raced as he stood up to answer it while I sat frozen in place, a mix of excitement and dread coursing through me simultaneously. His expression shifted when he opened the door. Disappointment washed over him like rain clouds obscuring sunlight moments before they burst open into storms. His face fell slightly upon seeing who stood there, an older woman wearing an expression too familiar yet foreign all at once, the kind you wear when you know something isn't right but can't quite pinpoint why not. I barely heard their exchange over thumping pulses echoing within myself, my thoughts racing faster than reality could keep up, with guilt creeping back into every crevice left unguarded since moving here alone months ago. As she stepped inside uninvited yet commanding attention effortlessly, with eyes darting between us, I realized how easily everything could unravel before it had even begun. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden as I stood beside Jake, our hands brushing against each other as we worked. The air was thick with the scent of freshly turned soil and blooming jasmine, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. Each moment spent together felt like a fragile secret, one that could shatter at any moment under the weight of my guilt. "Just here," Jake instructed, pointing to a patch of earth that needed attention. His voice was steady, but there was an underlying tension that mirrored my own. We had begun to cultivate more than just plants. Our conversations had morphed into something deeper, something I hadn't anticipated. "Right," I replied, forcing myself to focus on the task at hand. Digging into the earth provided a temporary distraction from the gnawing doubt in my mind. What was I doing? With every shared laugh and lingering gaze, I felt myself slipping further away from my life with David. "You know," Jake said casually as he knelt beside me, "gardening has a way of bringing out what's hidden inside us." His eyes met mine for a brief moment before he returned his attention to the soil. The implication hung in the air between us. I nodded slowly. "It's therapeutic," I murmured, though it felt like an understatement for everything that was happening in my heart. Jake's presence filled a void that had grown steadily larger since moving here, a void created by years of neglect and routine. As we continued working side by side, our hands brushed more frequently, igniting sparks of something unspoken. My heart raced with each accidental touch. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. The weight of my marriage loomed over me like a dark cloud, but Jake's warmth offered solace. "Do you remember when we first met?" he asked suddenly, breaking through my thoughts. I chuckled softly. "You were practically a stranger offering unsolicited help." He smiled at that, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I didn't think you'd take me up on it." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But now, it feels different." He paused for a moment, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "Different how?" I swallowed hard, caught off guard by his question. My mind raced through all the implications of what I could say next. Instead of answering directly, I leaned closer, our shoulders touching, and whispered softly, "Maybe it feels like home." The air around us shifted as if acknowledging the truth in those words. There was an undeniable connection growing between us, one that thrived in secrecy and whispered confessions beneath Charleston's warm sun. Without thinking further about consequences or guilt, I leaned in even closer until our lips brushed together softly, a fleeting moment that sent shockwaves through me. We kissed. It was innocent yet charged with an energy neither of us could ignore anymore. Pulling back slightly, I searched his eyes for any sign of regret or hesitation but found only warmth and understanding reflected back at me. "Wow," he breathed out softly as if trying to process what had just transpired between us. "Yeah," I replied breathlessly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified all at once. It was reckless yet intoxicating, a glimpse into something beautiful amidst chaos. But as quickly as it began, reality crashed back in like an unwelcome wave pulling me under again. "We shouldn't." My voice trailed off into silence as guilt crept back into my chest, a familiar companion reminding me of where I truly belonged, or thought I did. Jake straightened up abruptly and took a step back as if distancing himself from what had just happened would somehow erase it from existence altogether. "I'm sorry," he said quietly after a pause filled with uncertainty. "No," I rushed to say before he could retreat too far away emotionally or physically. "It's just complicated." He nodded slowly but didn't push further, an understanding hanging heavy between us now mixed with confusion and longing left unspoken. The sun continued its descent behind the horizon while shadows grew longer around us, mirroring my feelings spiraling deeper into uncertainty about everything surrounding this unexpected connection with him. As we resumed our work in silence, each shovel full of dirt feeling heavier than before, I couldn't shake off thoughts spinning through my head about David waiting back home, the husband who remained unaware of how distant we'd become over time, how lonely nights stretched endlessly without warmth or comfort anymore. After finishing for the day under fading light and exchanging tentative goodbyes outside his door, I walked home feeling lost within myself again. Torn between two worlds colliding unceremoniously within one heart desperate for clarity amidst confusion growing ever stronger. That night found me tossing restlessly under sheets too large for one person alone, the echoes of laughter shared earlier still dancing through my mind alongside memories from years past filled with love once promised but now feeling empty somehow. David arrived home late, his presence barely registering beyond routine greetings exchanged mechanically without thought or care, and yet there lingered an unspoken tension hanging thickly around us both like fog settling heavily upon Charleston streets after dark. "Long day?" he asked absently while flipping through mail piled high on the counter without meeting my gaze directly, an all too familiar routine drowning out any remnants left untouched by genuine connection long since faded away. "Just busy," I replied nonchalantly despite feeling anything but calm inside, nerves fraying under pressure building steadily within every passing moment spent apart lately. He shrugged lightly before retreating upstairs toward his office, leaving me alone again surrounded by silence echoing louder than words left unsaid. A reminder hauntingly vivid against memories painted across walls lined with photographs capturing happier times now lost somewhere beneath layers built up over years gone by. Sleep eluded me entirely that night, instead replaced by restless thoughts swirling endlessly around questions unanswered lingering heavily upon heart burdened too deeply by choices made along paths diverging unexpectedly towards unknown futures unfolding ahead. Morning came too soon, sunlight streaming brightly across surfaces illuminating dust motes suspended mid-air reminding me vividly how fragile everything felt right now. And then came news from Jake wanting to meet urgently, a message flashing across my phone screen sending shivers racing down spine anticipating what awaited beyond choices already made leading ever closer towards consequences looming just out of reach yet ever present. The storm arrived suddenly, dark clouds rolling in like an uninvited guest. I had been kneeling on the damp earth, my hands buried in the soil, trying to focus on the task of weeding the garden. Jake's presence beside me felt comforting, a balm to my restless thoughts. We had been working side by side, exchanging glances that lingered just a moment too long. The air was thick with tension and unspoken words. "Looks like we're in for it," Jake said, glancing up at the sky. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying urgency that matched my own racing heart. I nodded, trying to suppress the conflicting emotions swirling within me. The garden had become our sanctuary, a place where I could escape from my reality and explore this unexpected connection with him. But now, as raindrops began to fall, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. "Let's finish this later," I suggested, brushing dirt from my hands as I stood up. The first heavy drops splattered onto the ground around us, soaking into the soil and mingling with my unease. "Wait," Jake called out as I turned toward the house. "We can take cover in that old shed." He pointed to a dilapidated structure at the edge of the property, half hidden by overgrown vines and shadows. The thought of being alone with him in such a confined space sent a thrill through me, both exhilarating and terrifying. But as thunder rumbled ominously overhead, I nodded and followed him toward the shed. Inside, darkness enveloped us as we stepped into the musty air filled with memories of neglect. The walls were lined with forgotten tools and cobwebs hung like veils in every corner. It felt like stepping into another world, one where time stood still and our secrets could thrive without judgment. Jake moved closer to me as we huddled against a wall for shelter from the rain pouring outside. The sound was deafening, a relentless patter that drowned out everything else. In that moment of isolation, I could feel his warmth radiating toward me, drawing me in despite my better judgment. "What are we doing?" I whispered, my breath catching slightly as I met his gaze. "I don't know," he admitted softly, his eyes searching mine for answers neither of us had. "But it feels right." And then it happened, an electric moment where hesitation melted away into something undeniable between us. Our lips met softly at first. It was a hesitant exploration that quickly ignited into something more fervent. In those seconds, all thoughts of guilt vanished like mist under sunlight. All that mattered was this connection we had forged amidst chaos. But just as quickly as it began, reality crashed back and around us. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within me. What was I doing? My heart raced not only from desire but from fear of what lay ahead if anyone discovered this moment between us. As if sensing my turmoil, Jake pulled away slightly but didn't break our gaze. "Hannah, you know this can't be just a fling." His words hung heavy in the air between us. They echoed what I had been trying to avoid confronting since our first kiss weeks ago. "I have a family," I reminded him quietly, though inside I felt torn between two worlds, the one where duty resided and another filled with possibility. "I get that," he replied earnestly. "But there's something here, something real." The sincerity in his voice both comforted and terrified me. It forced me to confront feelings I had buried deep within myself for years, feelings about love and longing that had been overshadowed by obligation. "I can't just abandon everything," I said finally, though part of me craved to escape, to leave behind all expectations and embrace this new life waiting just beyond reach. "Then maybe we need to figure out what this means for both of us." Jake's expression shifted from desire to determination. He seemed ready to dive headfirst into whatever consequences awaited us. Before I could respond or even process his words fully, a loud crash sounded outside. The storm intensified with an unexpected ferocity that rattled the shed's walls around us. Anxiety surged through me. It felt like nature itself was warning against what we were doing inside those rotting boards. "We should get back," I urged suddenly as panic set in, not just about being caught but about what this meant moving forward. Jake hesitated but nodded slowly. He seemed reluctant yet understanding of my need for distance from this moment before things spiraled further out of control. As we stepped outside into the downpour together, our hands brushing against one another, I couldn't shake off how different everything felt now compared to when I'd first arrived in Charleston alone and lost amidst unfamiliar streets lined with history. We reached my home drenched yet exhilarated by what transpired within those four walls moments ago, a secret shared only between us, and yet there remained an undeniable weight looming over our heads, consequences waiting patiently on either side of our choices made under stormy skies. Inside my house was familiar yet foreign now, a space filled with memories tinged by dissatisfaction mingling alongside newfound desires awakened through fleeting moments spent with Jake outside its walls. Then came an unexpected sound, a message alert chiming from my phone on the kitchen counter echoing through silence enveloping everything else around me. I hesitated before checking it. My husband's name flashed across the screen. "We need to talk." An icy knot formed in my stomach as dread settled over me like a shroud. I knew then that whatever path lay ahead would force confrontation upon everything I'd tried so hard to avoid confronting until now. And as thunder rumbled once more overhead, a reminder that storms could bring both destruction and renewal, I stood frozen at this crossroads, unable to predict which way fate would ultimately lead. The message from my husband lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. I stared at my phone, the screen illuminating my face in the dim light of the abandoned house. My heart raced as I processed his words, each one a reminder of the life I had been trying to escape, at least momentarily. Jake stood beside me, his expression a mix of concern and understanding. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked softly, breaking the silence that had enveloped us. I shook my head, unable to articulate the chaos swirling in my mind. The warmth of our connection felt fragile now, as if it could shatter with one wrong move. "No," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just need a moment." We had spent so many evenings here, hidden away from prying eyes, sharing our secrets and dreams under the stars. But now, that sanctuary felt tainted by reality's intrusion. The thrill of our secret relationship was overshadowed by guilt and fear. The thought of facing my husband filled me with dread. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I finally confessed, looking into Jake's eyes for reassurance. He took a step closer, his presence grounding me amidst the storm brewing inside. "Neither did I," he said gently. "But we've built something real together." His words resonated with me. They were both comforting and terrifying. We had shared so much, our fears, our hopes, and yet here we were on the brink of losing it all because of my other life looming just outside these walls. "Maybe we should stop seeing each other," I suggested hesitantly, testing how it would feel to utter those words aloud. Jake's face fell slightly. "You don't mean that." "I don't know what I mean anymore," I admitted, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Everything is so complicated." A silence stretched between us as we both grappled with the weight of our choices. In this moment of vulnerability, I could see how deeply he cared for me, how much we had come to rely on each other in this chaotic time. "We've spent nights talking about things that matter," he reminded me softly. "About what we want from life." His gaze held mine firmly as if daring me to look away from what was unfolding between us. And suddenly it hit me, this wasn't just an escape for either of us, it was a chance to confront our own truths. "We spent the night together," I murmured almost absently as memories flooded back, moments where laughter mingled with shared fears and whispered confessions. But reality crashed back in as another message buzzed on my phone, a reminder that my husband was still waiting for answers back home. "I have to go," I said abruptly, panic rising within me like bile. "Wait," Jake urged gently but firmly as he reached out to grasp my arm before I could turn away completely. "You don't have to decide everything right now." But deep down, a decision was already forming, a choice between two lives that felt increasingly irreconcilable. "I can't keep lying," I said defiantly even as uncertainty clawed at me from within. "Then don't lie," he replied simply. His sincerity struck a chord within me. Perhaps honesty was indeed the only way forward, though it terrified me more than anything else could. As night fell around us and shadows stretched across the room like fingers reaching for something lost long ago, an unsettling feeling settled over me once more, a sense that time was running out for both of us. With every passing moment spent away from home came mounting tension. Every second felt like a countdown toward an inevitable confrontation waiting just beyond those doors. Before leaving, I hesitated once more at the threshold, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down heavily on my heart. Jake stepped closer again but kept his distance this time, a silent acknowledgement that whatever happened next would change everything between us forever. "I'll be here if you need to talk," he said softly as I finally turned toward him one last time before stepping into the cold night air outside, the world beyond beckoning yet feeling like an entirely different realm altogether than where we'd just been cocooned in warmth and connection moments ago. The drive back home felt longer than usual. Every street lamp flickered past like reminders of choices made and unmade while shadows danced along sidewalks lined with memories, each corner echoing whispers of what might have been had paths diverged differently long ago. Upon arriving home, a place once filled with familiarity now tinged with unease, I found myself standing at the door hesitating again before entering into what awaited within those walls. Questions left unanswered and unsaid truths hanging heavily in the air like thick fog obscuring clarity from view entirely. As soon as I stepped inside though, I knew something was amiss. The silence greeted me too starkly, no sounds emanating from any room indicating life or activity which only amplified anxiety coursing through veins already frayed by indecision earlier tonight. "Hannah?" My husband called out from somewhere deeper inside, a voice laced not only with concern but also an undercurrent of suspicion that made every hair on my neck stand up straight instantly. "Yeah?" My response came out tentative despite trying desperately not to sound anxious or guilty even though both emotions bubbled beneath surface ever so insistently now threatening eruption any moment if left unchecked. He emerged then into view, his expression clouded by worry mixed intricately together alongside something darker lurking just beneath surface readying itself for confrontation looming ahead without mercy whatsoever. "I need you to sit down." His tone commanded attention immediately causing heart rate quicken further still while dread washed over like tidal wave crashing against shore relentlessly threatening overwhelm completely if allowed too much time alone unguarded. "What's going on?" Confusion mingled uneasily alongside fear churning deep within making breath hitch slightly upon realization there were no easy answers awaiting discovery here tonight either way no matter how hard tried pretend otherwise. He gestured toward living room couch where light illuminated space inviting yet somehow foreboding simultaneously casting long shadows across floorboards stretching outward endlessly inviting darkness creeping closer every second ticking away relentlessly reminding us both this moment could change everything forevermore. "Hannah," he began again slowly almost hesitantly testing waters carefully before diving headfirst into depths unknown awaiting revelation sure would leave scars behind whether wanted them or not. The festival was alive with color and laughter, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. As I wandered through the vibrant stalls filled with handmade crafts and local delicacies, I couldn't shake off the heaviness in my chest. The chatter of families celebrating together only amplified my sense of isolation. Each smile I passed felt like a reminder of what I lacked: connection, warmth, and understanding. Jake's earlier ultimatum echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain that refused to fade. "You need to choose, Hannah," he had said, his eyes searching mine for an answer that felt impossible to articulate. The weight of his words pressed down on me as I navigated the festival grounds, trying to lose myself in the crowd but finding only solitude. I paused at a booth displaying colorful pottery, each piece unique yet somehow familiar. The artist's hands had shaped each vessel with care, much like how Jake had tended to our garden together. Those moments spent digging in the soil felt distant now, overshadowed by the looming decision that awaited me. Then, amidst the sea of faces, I spotted an old friend from college, Megan. She was laughing with her husband and children, her presence a beacon of light in my dimming world. We hadn't spoken in years, life had taken us on different paths. Yet here she was, radiating joy as if nothing had changed. "Hannah. Is that you?" she called out, her voice cutting through my thoughts like a knife. I turned toward her, forcing a smile despite the churning emotions within me. "Megan. It's been so long." As we embraced, I caught a glimpse of her husband's curious gaze lingering on me before he turned back to their children. Megan pulled back slightly and studied my face closely. "You look different," she remarked softly, concern flickering across her features. "Just settling into a new place," I replied vaguely. "How about you?" "Oh, busy as ever. You know how it is with kids." She laughed lightly but then grew serious again. "But really, how are you? It's not easy moving to a new city." I hesitated before replying. "It has its challenges." The truth hung unspoken between us like an invisible thread connecting our lives from years past. Megan leaned closer and lowered her voice conspiratorially. "You know there are whispers about you in town? Something about your marriage?" My heart raced at her words. "What do you mean?" She glanced around as if ensuring no one else could hear us before continuing. "People have been talking about your husband being distant lately." There was hesitation in her voice as if she feared crossing some invisible line. "Distant?" My mind raced back to our recent conversations, how he seemed more absorbed in work than ever before. "Yes," she said carefully. "And then there's talk about you spending time with Jake, your neighbor." The mention of Jake sent a shiver down my spine. Thoughts of him flooded my mind, his laughter as we worked together in the garden, our stolen moments filled with unspoken desires, the warmth of his embrace when we kissed under the stars. "Megan," I began but struggled to find the right words amidst my swirling emotions. "I'm not judging you," she quickly added. "But people are noticing things aren't quite right." I forced myself to nod as unease settled deep within me. The gossip felt like an unwelcome intrusion into my already complicated life, a reminder that secrets have a way of surfacing when least expected. As we continued our conversation amidst the festival chaos, Jake's face appeared in my mind again, his earnest expression when he spoke about wanting more than just fleeting moments together. He wanted commitment, he wanted clarity from me about where we stood. "I should go find my family," Megan finally said after exchanging pleasantries for too long. She squeezed my hand gently before stepping back into the throng of people around us. "Take care," I called after her but felt hollow as she disappeared into the crowd. The festival didn't feel festive anymore, it felt suffocating instead, a backdrop for all that was unraveling in my life. I wandered away from the booths towards a quieter area near some trees lining the edge of the park where families gathered for picnics and games. Here it was easier to breathe without feeling overwhelmed by laughter ringing out around me like echoes from another world where happiness reigned supreme. And then I saw him. Jake stood at a distance near an old oak tree watching me intently as if sensing my turmoil from afar. His presence sent butterflies fluttering wildly within me despite everything weighing heavily on my heart. As I approached him cautiously, uncertainty clawed at me like thorny vines wrapping tightly around fragile branches threatening to snap under pressure any moment now. "Hannah," he greeted softly when I reached him beneath the sprawling branches above us, filtering sunlight into soft golden hues across his features, a stark contrast against shadows lurking just outside this moment shared between us alone. "Jake," my voice faltered slightly but steadied itself as determination surged forward through uncertainty coursing through veins demanding clarity amidst chaos surrounding us both now more than ever before. "We need to talk," he said firmly yet gently, his eyes fixed on mine searching for answers they both craved yet feared discovering simultaneously, perhaps even more so than those whispers igniting fires burning brightly elsewhere beyond this sacred space carved out just for us today. "What do you want from me?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself, the rawness behind it reflecting everything inside struggling against boundaries imposed by expectations built over years lost somewhere along this journey taken far too long ago now. "I want honesty," he replied simply, but those two words carried weight heavier than anything else spoken tonight could possibly convey between two souls caught up amidst tangled webs spun intricately over time, leading them here now facing choices made unaware until this very moment arrived demanding Reckoning finally come forth once and for all. As silence enveloped us momentarily while processing what lay ahead, waiting patiently just beyond reach, still lurking beneath surface, ready strike whenever least expected, catching unaware anyone daring venture forth without preparation, first gathering strength necessary, push past fears holding them captive forevermore, unless broken free somehow eventually. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. My admission hung heavy between us, a confession born out desperation, seeking release finally after so long trapped inside, yearning escape desperately needed, perhaps even more than anything else desired right now. Jake stepped closer, his gaze unwavering, steady, locking onto mine, igniting spark ignited deep within, previously buried beneath layers upon layers, shielding heart fragile, needing protection, perhaps too much, a long way, forgetting purpose behind journey taken thus far. Seeking fulfillment instead, finding disillusionment creeping ever closer, threatening consume entirely if not addressed head-on immediately, without hesitation any longer whatsoever. What does that mean? His question cut through tension thick enough, slice air surrounding us both, sharply drawing attention toward reality looming overhead, darkening skies above, casting shadows longer, still stretching outward endlessly, inviting darkness creeping closer every second, ticking away, relentlessly reminding us both this moment could change everything forevermore. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, and I could sense the tension radiating between Jake and me. He stood there, so close yet miles away, his expression a mix of concern and anticipation. I knew I had to confront my husband soon. The thought of facing him sent a shiver down my spine. "Let's talk," Jake finally said, his voice low but firm. "We need to figure this out." I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. How had I let things get this far? The lines between right and wrong had blurred in ways I never anticipated. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me back to reality. It was a message from my husband. He wanted to plan a vacation for just the two of us. My heart sank at the irony. He thought a getaway could mend what was broken between us. Did he even understand how far apart we had drifted? "I have to go," I said abruptly, pulling away from Jake's magnetic presence. "Wait," he stepped forward again, urgency in his tone. "We can't just leave things like this." But how could I stay? The idea of facing my husband felt insurmountable. "I'll call you later," I promised, already feeling the distance between us growing. As I drove home through the picturesque streets of Charleston, the historic charm felt like a cruel reminder of everything that was slipping through my fingers. The cobblestone roads seemed to whisper secrets of lost connections and hidden desires as they wound their way through the city. At home, my husband greeted me with an enthusiasm that made my stomach churn. He began detailing plans for our vacation, sunny beaches and romantic dinners, but all I could think about was Jake and the connection we shared. "Doesn't that sound perfect?" he asked, his eyes bright with hope. "Sure," I replied absently, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. As he continued talking about our trip, part of me longed for that simplicity, the life we once shared before everything became complicated. But another part screamed in frustration at the facade we maintained. Later that evening, after dinner had settled and silence enveloped us like an unwelcome guest, I found myself staring out at our garden, a space where Jake and I had forged an unexpected bond over soil and seeds. The flowers bloomed brightly under the fading light, yet they felt more vibrant than anything in our home. "Are you okay?" My husband's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to him slowly. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly. He studied me for a moment longer than necessary before returning to his newspaper. His eyes were distant. It was as if he sensed something but couldn't quite grasp it. The next morning brought no relief as anxiety gnawed at me like an unwelcome shadow while preparing for work. My mind raced with thoughts of Jake, his laughter echoing in my ears and his kindness wrapping around me like a warm blanket. What would happen if I chose him? Would it be worth losing everything? At work, distractions were plentiful yet ineffective against the storm brewing inside me. As hours ticked by, Jake's earlier words echoed in my mind, "We need to figure this out." What did that mean for us? Did he see a future together? Or was it simply an escape from our respective realities? Just as those questions began to settle into uneasy acceptance, my phone buzzed again, this time with an urgent call from Jake wanting to meet immediately. My pulse quickened at his tone. Something significant must be happening. "I have to go," I told my colleague abruptly before rushing out of the office. The community garden felt different today, charged with anticipation as if nature itself held its breath waiting for what would unfold next. When Jake arrived moments later, his expression bore urgency mixed with something else, a hint of fear or perhaps vulnerability that made him more relatable than ever. "Hannah," he started before taking a deep breath as if gathering courage from deep within himself. "There's something you need to know." "What is it?" My heart raced. Every instinct told me this would shift everything once again. He hesitated briefly before continuing, "My past isn't as simple as you think." That admission hung in the air between us like an uninvited guest crashing an intimate gathering, a revelation waiting to unravel all we'd built together over these last few weeks filled with laughter and stolen moments under moonlight shadows. "I've been married too," he confessed quietly after gauging my reaction carefully, his eyes searching mine for understanding or judgment alike amidst swirling emotions threatening chaos within both our lives now intertwined so deeply they felt inseparable despite their origins rooted elsewhere, entirely different lives lived apart until recently, converging here today unexpectedly. My breath caught in my throat at this new twist. How could we both be trapped in such similar circumstances? It was both comforting and terrifying knowing we weren't alone in our struggles, yet highlighted how complicated love could become when entangled within existing commitments already strained beyond recognition. "And you haven't told anyone?" My voice trembled slightly despite efforts maintaining composure throughout this revelation unfolding right before me now under bright summer sun casting long shadows across ground beneath feet where secrets lay buried waiting patiently for someone brave enough to dig them up. Exposed truths hidden deep down inside heart's longing connection beyond mere physicality. "No one knows," he admitted, finally breaking eye contact, glancing toward ground instead, unable face consequences looming overhead, threatening crushed dreams built, fragile trust nurtured carefully over time spent together. Before either of us could process what lay ahead, before decisions made irrevocably altered paths chosen thus far, I heard footsteps approaching swiftly, echoing down cobblestone path leading directly toward us both, interrupting fragile moment shared just seconds ago, filled hope, potential future, brightening horizons once darkened by uncertainty now illuminated brightly. Sunlight streaming through branches overhead, casting dappled shadows across faces turned toward new possibilities waiting patiently beyond reach, still tantalizingly close enough grasp if only willing, risk everything lost along way journey taken thus far. "Hannah." The familiar voice called out urgently, pulling focus back toward reality surrounding us both, forcing acknowledgement, consequences looming overhead, darkening skies above, casting shadows longer still stretching outward endlessly, inviting darkness creeping closer, every second ticking away, relentlessly reminding us both this moment could change everything forevermore. "Hannah." The familiar voice called out urgently, pulling my focus back toward reality. My heart sank as I turned to see my husband, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. He stood at the edge of the garden, framed by the vibrant blooms and lush greenery that had once brought me solace. Now, they felt like a prison, surrounding me with an overwhelming sense of entrapment. "Mark," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The warmth I had felt moments ago with Jake evaporated in an instant, replaced by the cold grip of guilt and anxiety. "What are you doing here?" Mark's tone was sharp, cutting through the serene atmosphere like a knife. He glanced between Jake and me, his eyes narrowing as he tried to piece together the puzzle before him. I hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't betray the truth. "I was helping Jake with his garden." It sounded feeble even as I said it. "Helping?" Is that what you call this? Mark gestured dismissively at Jake, who stood silently beside me. You've been spending a lot of time here lately. Jake shifted uncomfortably but didn't speak. His presence felt both comforting and threatening now, a reminder of everything I had been grappling with in recent weeks. I thought we were going to talk about our plans, I said, trying to redirect the conversation back to safer ground. You mentioned wanting to discuss our vacation. Vacation? Mark scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest. That's not what this looks like. His gaze flickered back to Jake, then returned to me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. The tension in the air thickened as silence enveloped us for a moment too long. The vibrant colors of the garden seemed muted against the backdrop of our confrontation. The laughter from festival-goers in the distance felt like a cruel reminder of joy that seemed unattainable now. I think we should talk, Jake finally said, breaking the silence with a calmness that contrasted sharply with my racing heart. Talk? Mark echoed incredulously. About what? You think you can just step into our lives and play savior? Mark, I began, but he cut me off. No. You don't get to defend him, he snapped at me before turning back to Jake. You have no idea what you're getting involved in. Jake took a step forward but kept his voice steady. I'm not trying to interfere in your marriage. But Hannah deserves honesty about what's happening between us. The weight of those words hung heavily in the air between us. My heart raced as I processed their implications, the truth laid bare before us all like an open wound. Hannah, Mark said softly now, his anger giving way to something more vulnerable. Is this true? Is there something going on? I could see pain etched across his features. It mirrored my own internal struggle. The choice loomed larger than ever, between duty and desire. The words caught in my throat as I searched for clarity amid chaos swirling around us. Suddenly, everything felt surreal. The colors of the garden faded into a blur while time slowed down around us. Each second stretched painfully as I weighed my options against an unbearable backdrop of guilt and longing. Then came another twist that sent shockwaves through me. I know about Jake, Mark revealed quietly, almost too softly for me to hear over the pounding in my ears. What? My voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. I heard things, rumors, he continued, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. People have been talking. The ground beneath me felt unstable as if it might give way at any moment under the pressure of this revelation. The world spun slightly out of control, everything hinged on how I would respond next. What do you mean you know about him? My voice trembled as panic surged within me again, this time mingled with something darker, fear of losing everything I had built over years. Mark took another step closer. There was desperation in his eyes now, a plea for understanding or perhaps forgiveness for whatever missteps had led us here. I don't want our marriage to fall apart because of rumors or misunderstandings, he said earnestly. But if there's something real between you two. His words hung heavily between us like an unspoken accusation or a challenge waiting for resolution. I want honesty, he continued more firmly this time, almost pleadingly yet resolutely standing tall against whatever storm raged around him, around us both now caught within this tangled web woven from desires unmet and expectations broken. In that moment filled with unspoken truths and raw emotions swirling around us all, Jake standing silently beside me while Mark searched desperately for answers, I understood one thing clearly: there was no easy way out anymore. Choices made would ripple outward, affecting everyone involved, irrevocably altering lives forevermore. And then came another twist when Jake spoke up again. Hannah deserves happiness, even if it means facing hard truths. His tone held conviction unlike any other moment shared before, a stark contrast against lingering shadows cast by uncertainty hanging overhead, suffocating light once brightening paths ahead towards possibility waiting patiently beyond reach yet tantalizingly close enough grasp if only willing, risk everything lost along way. Journey taken thus far. Do you really mean that? I asked quietly. Every word felt charged, carrying weight beyond mere syllables exchanged among three souls entwined within complex tapestry woven from threads long frayed, unraveling, slowly revealing deeper layers hidden beneath surface appearances maintained throughout years spent together. Navigating life's unpredictable terrain, fraught dangers lurking everywhere, threatening stability once thought secure now crumbling beneath feet, unsure footing, uncertain future looming ahead, darkening skies above casting shadows longer still, stretching outward endlessly, inviting darkness creeping closer every second, ticking away relentlessly, reminding us both this moment could change everything forevermore. Mark looked between us again, searching, faces worn by emotions raw, laid bare, exposed without pretense, stripped away, revealing core essence, true selves hidden beneath masks worn daily, shielding vulnerabilities too painful confront alone. Yet here we stood, facing consequences inevitable regardless outcome chosen next. We need clarity, he finally stated firmly, though uncertainty lingered still within tone, betraying underlying fears hidden deep below surface, calm exterior maintained throughout confrontation thus far. Yes, Jake agreed, simply nodding slightly, though tension coiled tightly around each word spoken, resonating loudly, echoing through silence, enveloping garden lush, vibrant colors fading into backdrop overshadowed by turmoil brewing beneath surface, threatening erupt violently if left unchecked any longer. I inhaled deeply, feeling weight pressing down upon chest, constricting breath itself making difficult focus amidst whirlwind thoughts racing through mind, spinning wildly, out control, desperately seeking anchor, grounding amidst chaos, swirling rapidly around three lives intertwined, fatefully drawn together, entwined paths crossed irrevocably forevermore. The air hung thick with tension, a palpable weight that seemed to press down on all three of us. My heart raced as I stood frozen, caught between the two men who had become central figures in my life. Jake's face was a mask of concern, while my husband's eyes burned with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Do you want to explain why you've been spending so much time with him? My husband's voice cut through the silence like a knife, sharp and unforgiving. Each word dripped with accusation, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. I started, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? How could I explain the connection I felt with Jake without revealing everything? The guilt twisted inside me like a serpent. Jake stepped forward slightly, his expression softening. We were just working on some projects around the house, he said, trying to diffuse the situation. But his attempt fell flat against the storm brewing in my husband's eyes. Projects? Or something more? My husband's voice rose, echoing off the cobblestone walls of our surroundings. The historic charm of Charleston felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by this confrontation. I glanced at Jake, searching for a sign of support or understanding. Instead, he looked conflicted, caught in a web of emotions that mirrored my own. The warmth we had shared now felt like a distant flame flickering against the harsh reality of our lives. Listen, Jake began again, but my husband cut him off. No. This is between me and Hannah. His words were firm, leaving no room for argument. You need to leave. The finality in his tone sent a wave of panic through me. Please don't do this, I pleaded softly, stepping closer to Jake instinctively as if seeking refuge beside him. Why shouldn't I? My husband shot back, frustration boiling over. You've been lying to me. You think I haven't noticed how distant you've become? Jake took a step back as if sensing the danger escalating around us. Hannah, he started again but was silenced by my husband's glare. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I burst out suddenly, feeling an unexpected surge of defiance rise within me. The truth hung heavy on my lips, it demanded release even if it meant tearing apart what little was left of my marriage. My husband's expression shifted from anger to surprise. What do you mean? His voice softened slightly but remained laced with disbelief. I mean, we're not fine, I admitted finally, feeling lighter yet terrified at what lay ahead. I've been unhappy for a long time. Jake's gaze met mine briefly before he turned away, casting his eyes downward as if he couldn't bear to witness this moment any longer. Unhappy? My husband echoed incredulously. So you think running off with him is going to fix that? It's not about running off, I exclaimed desperately. It's about finding something real, something that makes me feel alive again. The silence that followed was deafening. Each breath felt charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings swirling among us like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. You think this is real? My husband asked incredulously after what felt like an eternity passed between us. This, whatever it is. It's just an escape. I opened my mouth to argue but hesitated as doubt crept into my mind. Was it truly just an escape? Hadn't every moment shared with Jake felt like stepping into sunlight after being trapped in shadow for too long? Before I could respond further, Jake interjected softly yet firmly. Maybe she needs space to figure things out. His words hung heavy in the air. They were both an offer and an ultimatum wrapped into one. No. My husband shouted suddenly, anger flaring anew as he turned toward Jake once more. A protective instinct ignited within him that now seemed almost primal. You don't get to dictate what happens here. Stop. I yelled out suddenly. Desperation clawed at me as emotions threatened to spill over completely, fear mingled with longing and guilt wrapped tightly around each thought racing through my mind. This isn't helping. Jake looked at me then stepped back further still as if recognizing how precarious our situation had become. Not just for himself but also for me caught between two worlds colliding violently together threatening everything familiar yet unsatisfying about life thus far lived. My husband's eyes narrowed dangerously upon hearing those words from me, the realization dawning upon him perhaps that this wasn't merely about infidelity anymore but rather an awakening buried deep within myself yearning desperately for freedom from constraints holding tight around heart and soul alike. What do you want? He asked finally. There was no anger left now, only confusion mingled heavily with fear reflected back at me through those familiar features once so comforting now twisted by betrayal lurking beneath surface unaddressed until now. I want, but before clarity could fully form within mind-swirling chaos erupted instead. A cacophony drowning out reason leaving only fragmented thoughts scattered throughout consciousness unable grasp hold onto anything solid enough anchor self against storm raging outside myself threatening sweep away all sense stability built over years past. And then came realization crashing down upon realization, a tidal wave sweeping away everything once known leaving nothing behind except raw vulnerability laid bare exposed beneath scrutiny awaiting judgment inevitable looming ahead. In that fleeting moment suspended between breaths, the world fell silent around us. Time itself seeming pause allowing space breathe amidst chaos swirling outside boundaries drawn tightly around hearts now laid bare exposed vulnerable raw aching desperately seeking solace understanding connection lost somewhere along way. But before decisions could be made or paths chosen, the sound of footsteps echoed sharply against cobblestones nearby breaking spell cast upon us suddenly jolting everyone back into reality surrounding us once more pressing down heavily suffocating any chance respite sought after desperately moments earlier. A figure emerged from shadows creeping closer illuminated briefly under flickering lights overhead revealing itself unmistakably familiar face etched deeply within memories cherished long ago. A ghost from past returned unexpectedly throwing everything up into question once more shaking foundations built upon fragile truths held tightly until now threatening crumble entirely.